My name is Keith, and I would like to tell you a story of long ago, a time when barons ruled. And our Lord, a rich and powerful man, was also a soothsayer. He took down his book of fates, finding his young son's birth date. He looked to see who he might marry, and to his anger he saw that it predicted that he would marry the daughter of a common cobbler working in the shadow of York Cathedral. The next morning he rode to York, and sure enough there was the cobbler's shop. The cobbler was sitting outside, brushing some shoes, looking them over, looking glum. Feigning friendship, he dismounted and walked over. "What ails you, my man?" he said. "I have 4 children, all sons, all who can work for me, and now I have a baby daughter. And what use will she be?" "Ah," says the Lord, "I can take that baby off your hands. She can come and be brought up as a servant in my castle. She will have a fine life." The cobbler brightened at this, and without consulting his wife, handed over the infant. The Lord rode out of York, but not toward his estate. He rode down to the river, dismounted, and threw the infant in, and without a backward glance climbed back onto his horse and rode to his estate. But the child did not sink and drown. Her clothes billowed and carried her down the river until she was washed up on the shore next to a fisherman's cottage. And there he was, mending his nets, when he saw the movement by the bank. He walked over and picked up the small child. He was delighted, for he and his wife had no children of their own. He called to her, saying, "Wife, look what the river has brought us. How lucky we are." 16 years passed, and our Lord was out hunting with a group of friends. It was a hot day, and they stopped by the cottage for drink. They were very amused when a young girl of 16 brought out a tray of beer for them. There were jokes passed between the young men, as you would expect, and one said to his lord, "My lord, ask her birthday. See who she will marry." "Ha," said the lord with some contempt. "She will marry a beggar or a local farmhand." But he called her over anyway and asked her when she was born. And politely she curtsied and said, "My lord, I know not, for I was washed down the river, and my father found me by the bank, and I was brought up as his daughter." The Lord's face darkened, for he knew who she was. Again, feigning friendship, he called the fisherman over. "What are your daughter's prospects if she stays here?" "My friend, the Earl of Scarborough. He will take her into service. She will have a good life, and who knows, might meet a good husband." The fisherman thought this was a good idea and a blessing for his daughter. The Lord ordered a carriage and wrote a letter of introduction. Next day, the young woman set off, feeling a bit out of place in the fine carriage, dressed in her peasant's clothes. But halfway to Scarborough, the coach was stopped by a gang of bandits. She was taken from the coach and pleaded for mercy. "My lord," she said to the bandit captain, "I am a simple girl. I am on my way to Scarborough to take up service. All I have is this letter of introduction." The captain took it off her roughly and opened it up, and as a man who could read, he was startled to find that it was not a letter of introduction. It was a request for the Earl of Scarborough to put the carrier of this message to death. The captain, seeing the baseness of this request, wrote another letter. "The carrier of this message is the one who should marry my son. Please make preparations." The girl carried on in the carriage. The Earl of Scarborough was surprised at the message he received, but preparations were made. When the Lord arrived with his son, he was furious to see her standing there. He asked for her to accompany him on the cliff for a walk, and while they were at the top, as the wind blew in from the sea, he grabbed her roughly by the arm, looking at her to throw her off the cliff. But she pulled back and fought. "My lord," she said, "I know not why you wish me dead, but worry not. I will go from this place. You will never have to see me again." And with a snarl, he took a gold ring from his finger and he threw it off the cliff way into the sea. "When you bring me that ring is the time I will want to see you," he said, and he turned and walked back down the hill. The girl walked for 3 days and 3 nights and came across the castle of Bridlington. She was taken in as a skivvy in the kitchen, and it soon became obvious that she knew how to skin and gut fish and prepare them for the table, for she was a fisherman's daughter. 3 years passed in this occupation when she heard that the Lord and his son and his entourage were coming for a visit. Now, she didn't feel threatened. There is no way a man of his standing would be found in a kitchen. But the feast had to be prepared. There were many courses: venison, beef, pheasant, and a huge fish was handed to her on the table to prepare. And she took her knife and she slit it down the middle, and halfway down there was a clink. And she reached in, and there amongst the guts of the fish, when she cleaned it off, was the gold ring. She smiled to herself and placed it on her thumb and carried on with her work. The feast went well. There was much merriment. Drink was taken. Singers of songs, players, musicians. Everyone was in a good mood, and the Lord enjoyed the feast and paid compliments to his host, and his host paid compliments to the Lord, until finally the Lord said, "And the fish was the finest I have tasted in my life. Bring the cook to me, so I may reward him." The girl was brought before him, wiping herself on her apron, heart thumping. And as she came into the room and the Lord saw her approach, his face darkened, and he was about to speak when, emboldened, she took the ring from her finger, walked forward and placed it on the table in front of him. The Lord looked at the ring and looked at her and his face changed. He called for a chair to be brought between him and his son, and he cried out, saying, "Before you, you see my son's betrothed, lost these past 3 years." And the crowd cheered. And for him, he realised at that point, you cannot cheat fate. And that is the end of my story for today.